Reading with your kids.
Hola, ni hao, konnichiwa, assalamu alaikum, shalom, mahaba, moni moli wanji, namaste, jumbo, bienvenidos. Hi, my name is Jed Lee, and this is the Reading with Your Kids podcast. We are coming to you from the beautiful neighborhood of Reedville, in the southwest corner of Boston, Massachusetts. We are so honored and so very happy that you are joining us in our mission to help families grow closer through reading. Please tell all of your family and friends about the show, and please subscribe to the show on the iHeartRadio app, on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Audible, Stitcher Radio, wherever you find your podcast. Our guest today is Mika Song. She is here to celebrate Pizza My Heart. It's the latest in her adorable graphic novel series. Before we invite Mika into the studio, we want to let you know that this episode of the Reading with Your Kids podcast is brought to you by Peril, an exciting middle grade novel by Margaret Pollock. Get ready for a breathtaking adventure in Polar Peril. This captivating story introduces us to 12-year-old Nikki and her cousin Charlie Chum. Both of these kids attend Mohawk Strawberry Festival. While they are there, a seer gives Nikki a magical carved polar bear named Follow Me. Follow Me guides her as she learns how to talk with animals and fly. Follow Me tells Nikki that the creator has an assignment just for her, to fly to the Arctic to save the polar bears whose world is melting from global warming. This is a story of a life-changing journey that you and your kids are going to absolutely love. Check it out today. Polar Peril, a great middle grade novel by Margaret Pollock. This episode of the podcast is also brought to you by Fly, 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 Little Birdie, a beautiful and heartwarming picture book by Jacob Monroe. Fly into the world of a baby bird who is ready to fly everywhere. Fly, 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 Little Birdie is a short and sweet rhyming story about a little bird who flies around the world to see all of the world's most iconic landmarks. This really is a beautiful story. Jacob Monroe came and read Fly, 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 Little Birdie at our recent live event at the Buttonwood Park Zoo, and the audience was just enthralled with the story. They loved it. They loved Jacob, and I know you're going to love this book, too, and you're absolutely going to want to put it in your family library. Fly, 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 Little Birdie by Jacob Monroe. Join us right now from the great state of New York. Our guest is here today to celebrate her brand new picture book. It's called Pizza My Heart. Please welcome to the show the author and illustrator, Mika Song. Hey, Mika, how are you?
Hi, Jed. Thanks for having me.
I'm excited to have you on. Pizza My Heart is part of a trilogy of wonderful, very punny books.
Yeah, the first book is Don't Feed the Squirrels, and the next one was Apple of My Pie that came out last year, and now we've got Pizza My Heart. And it's actually going to be a 4-book series.
Ooh.
But I can't tell you what the food is for the 4th book yet.
Okay. Well, why don't you start? You were sharing with me before we started recording that you were really surprised that the publisher went with what you thought was just kind of a goofy working title, Don't Feed the Squirrels. Is that right?
Oh, yeah. No, I always imagined that it would be a working title, and I always put placeholders whenever I get stuck when I'm writing, so I don't let that stop me from finishing my work. Mm-hmm. And so I just always had it in my mind that was going to be a filler title, and one day we'd sit down and all talk about what the real professional title of the book was going to be. And I was really happy to find out that they were like, this is definitely going to be the actual title of the book.
That's so cool. That's so cool. So why don't we, before we talk about the other books, let's talk about Pizza My Heart. Who are we going to meet in Pizza My Heart?
So it's going to be your same favorite squirrels, Norma. Norma's the leader. She's the pointy-faced squirrel. She's shaped like 2 triangles. And her best friend, Belly, who's round and brave and athletic and will do anything Norma says. and they have, and then there'll be a little appearance by Gramps, who is the guardian of the squirrels, and with his gigantic reading glasses and bits of wisdom. And Little B will also have a little appearance.
Little B, cool. Very cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. What was the inspiration for a pointy-faced squirrel and a athletic, round, brave-bellied squirrel?
Yeah, so it was really fun when I was coming up with the characters. I knew I would have to draw them with kids in schools. And so I really wanted them to be based on simple shapes. And I also knew that I would have to draw them over and over again, like 100 times, or more, actually more than 100 times, because they show up sometimes 3 times on a page. Mm-hmm. So I wanted it to be something I could really dash off, like confidently over and over again. And so I wanted to reduce the shapes of squirrels, and I just kept doodling squirrels over and over again, until I could. At one point, I saw a squirrel in profile, and I kind of just dashed it off as a triangle, because the nose points out like that. And that was the tip of the point of the triangle. And then I kind of just was like, maybe I could make that work. If I could make a triangle face work, that'd be really memorable and easy to recognize from far away, because graphic novels are not as big as picture books, and they appear smaller because of the panels. So you want something that's really graphic. Mm-hmm. So that's how I kind of came up with their shapes. And it's really fun because like kids are they always comment about, and reviewers are also commenting like, she looks like a jelly bean for Belly, or she looks like a door for Belly. And Norma's like, oh, she looks like an hourglass. So, yeah, I just had fun with that.
That's really cool. I guess it's interesting as, somebody who's not an illustrator and has no business picking up any kind of artistic devices. I find it fascinating to kind of get a look into your, creative thought process, and what a very practical and obviously very successful kind of way to look at that character development. Like, I got to do this 1,000,000 times, so I have to make it something that's fairly easy for me to do, but also really appealing.
Yeah, exactly.
How was it that you kind of did you have somebody in the art world kind of sit down with you and give you that kind of wisdom of how to look at things, or was it just experience and like I need to be easy on myself?
I've had so many good teachers that really so to like pinpoint who it was that gave me that idea would be hard. Although there are definitely some teachers that have taught me things where every time I do that when I'm drawing, I go, oh, Matt Madden wouldn't like that I'm like leaving a unconnected line right there, or, things like that. Like I have that little dialogue in my head as I'm drawing. But, I think I actually picked up that idea from a graphic designer. And I'm not sure which one now either, sadly, but that, your image should look strong and recognizable from far away. So even if it's tiny, and really the best way to do that is with shapes. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But I studied, I went to art school, and I had so many teachers and continuing ed courses I took, and, yeah.
Well, that it makes perfect sense, because we're living in a world where there are so many very simple images that convey so much to us, because we see them on signs all the time, or even now because there's so much video in our lives, there are certain notes, or just two or three notes or sounds that it's like, oh, I hear, oh, that means that this next thing is coming up.
Yeah. I also like the shape of the squirrels to kind of express how their personalities are. Mm-hmm. So when I found the triangular squirrel, that was Norma, I was like thinking of different names for her. And I knew she was going to be the leader because she had a pointy nose that looked like an arrow. So wherever her face is pointing, it looks like an arrow pointing in the direction of what's important, mm-hmm. or what to look at. And then I also wanted her name to reflect that. So her name starts with an N, which is also pointy. And then I wanted to have a completely different name for the sidekick, because if you have one that's like kind of the same, it gets confusing, right? So although Bill and Ted is easy, I don't know how they manage that. I guess they're just awesome. But like Belly is more of a silly non-name. It's not a formal name. It's kind of like a body part and kind of bouncy. So I want her to be more of the funny one.
That's very cool. So Pizza My Heart, it's is this a book that's just filled with great puns?
I didn't go as hard on the puns as I did on Don't Feed the Squirrels. There are a few in there. But there is one thing that I'm really curious how people are what they're gonna think of about it. And it's, I'm always, the thing with comics is I can always do something where, you can use the space in between the two drawings, and with picture books too, to let the reader kind of fill in the blanks. If you set up the before and after, right? You don't have to give every single part of what's going to happen. And, so in Don't Feed the Squirrels, I have a moment where the getaway car, which is a roller skate, goes flying off screen. And then the next one is a crash with just the word crash on the next panel. And so if you're reading it and you're really into it, then you have this whole vision of like roller skate laces and like wheels up in the air and, all of that, but that's all in your mind. And so I kept trying to do that more and more in the book, like leaving these gaps. And so with Pizza My Heart, there's a gap that is pretty extreme, which is just the squirrels have to now escape from, I won't give away the story, but they have to now escape from where they are. And I just have a single panel on the page with the two squirrels balanced on this precarious sculpture with a whole bunch of like stuff in the room. And then it cuts to they're outside of the next page is they're outside of the building. So that's the thing that I'm kind of like playing with in Pizza My Heart is, I want to see if kids are like, oh yeah, no, I get, this is how they did it. That's what I want to ask them when I read it. Cause that's a fun thing I started realizing with the books is that, they come out and then you share them and you hear from kids and you get to do school visits and things like that. And then you can always like find out what they made of it. And, I find that really fun. And I try to put that into the next book. The other thing that Pizza My Heart has, which is a small thing, but one kid on Instagram asked their mother to ask me what the real name of Mr. Spritzer is, who is a character, who's this like crotchety donut seller in the first book. And so I managed to put that into the Pizza My Heart. So that secret will be revealed for that kid.
Awesome. What a fantastic time we live in where, somebody somewhere in the world is able to, reach out and, hey, my kid wonders what, and then you're able to answer in another book.
Yeah, it's really satisfying and gratifying to get that kind of full circle so easily. Yeah. I really love it.
As you're talking about the puns and the kids getting it, and I do educational magic shows at schools around the country, and I know in my shows I use a lot of dopey jokes and puns, and one of the things that's really funny, and I think it's kind of the parts of my show that I like the most, is obviously there are the jokes that everybody gets and everybody's falling on the floor, but I also love those jokes where there's just one person that gets it, and that one person is falling on the floor laughing over it, and nobody else, and they're just looking, and I just love that. That's like one of my favorite parts of my show.
Oh, well, I mean, that's one of the nice things about actually performing is you get that instant feedback from people. But yeah, if you ever are lucky enough as an author to hear someone laughing at your book, it's like the best feeling in the whole world.
Yeah. Well, it seems like you get to do a lot of school visits.
Not really that much. I not really that often, maybe like once a month.
Okay, well, that's 12 more than most authors get in a year. So.
That's true. And then I also did Kids Need Mentors, which is a program that Jarrett Lerner put together for kidlit authors, where you can like match up with a teacher and their class, and then you kind of follow them through the year, and you do regular meetings, which is really a lot of fun because then you really get to know people.
Yeah, that sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. What is it for you as an author illustrator, getting into the schools, whether it's once a month or once a week? Is that a real challenge for you, or is it something that you just loved and came naturally?
I think it's like one of the amazing. Oops, did I hang?
Nope.
One of the amazing benefits that I discovered afterwards. I was always attracted to the idea that, I could use my drawing, which I love so much, and being at home drawing, and use that as a way to like communicate. But then once I started doing school visits, I realized, and we could talk about what I drew in the book, and we could draw together. That I realized that was even more fun. And also going into libraries, which is like my second favorite place after being at home, is also really fun. So it's like an excuse to go into all these spaces. Like I really had a good school experience, and I like going into schools and like poking around and seeing how people do stuff. Mm-hmm. So, and seeing kids. So it's kind of this great, excuse to do that.
Yeah. That's great. There seems to be a new kind of push now to not move away from, but add graphic novels to the world of kids' books. Before graphic novels, when I thought of graphic novels, it was, going into my son's room and seeing the big stack of anime and manga that he had. And it's really fun to see that they're creating graphic novels for a younger audience, because I think that it's a form of literature, and I'm using that word literature intentionally. It's a form of literature that's really appealing to certain kids, especially kids who might not typically love reading.
Yeah, I mean, I was like a voracious reader, as I was an only child, and I was like, my best friends were books. I loved having books, and I'd read them over and over again. But I also happened to like drawing. So I guess that's why I got into, comics. But I think I love comics as much as, and I still do read prose. Like I love them kind of equally. And I think I'm not sure where the popularity is coming from with graphic novels. But I don't really understand it either, but I know that, like I was working in the library trying to write my next picture book a couple of years ago, like 6 years ago. And I saw this like 7-year-old boy going up to the librarian, and usually the boys are running up with laptops, or like, the pass to rent the laptop so they can play the game against their friend. I don't even know what the game is. So I sit here spying, right? I'm like spying instead of writing. And he comes up with like a stack of 20 books, and they're all black and white and pink. It's a pink mouse. It's Baby Mouse. And they're like fighting over who's going to read the next like 20 books of Baby Mouse. And I was like, I want to be that book. I want to have that book where kids are just like, I love this book so much. I need to read it. Like, I wanted to capture that. So that's really my inspiration for writing for children in the graphic novel format. And if I think it does like appeal to different kinds of readers. And if it is like a gateway for people to love the idea of books and having a book in their hand, I'm all for it. So yeah, I'm just happy to like have a bit of to be part of that game right now.
Yeah. Well, and again, I've shared this on the podcast in the past. I certainly supported my son's love of graphic novels. Anytime when on the road, and find one, I'd bring it home, and we'd go to Free Comic Day and all of that. But I know there are also many, many times when I would walk into his room and I would say, could you please read a book without a picture? You're in high school. You're going to college next year. Just once. And I didn't appreciate the fact that graphic novels and the stories in graphic novels are stories. There's some real meat there, and it's really fun. And in the case of your book, there's some great wit and great humor and great story, and that's something to be celebrated. And if that's, as you said, the gateway towards to reading that a kid chooses to take, then I'm all for that, and we should be supportive of that.
Oh yeah, no, thanks for saying that. Yeah, I mean, it's just going to get better and better because more and more people are writing. It's not just a small group of people who are interested in the format. It's like all kinds of people. So there'll be like all kinds of stories as it gets more mainstream. And I just think it's a great time. Yeah, for graphic novels.
It really is. It really is. Hey, I'm going to take advantage of this because this is my podcast and I'm the host, so I can take advantage if I want. There is somebody that I met on social media in the Philippines, and she is a young artist. She's in school right now studying, and she did a couple of really lovely designs for me. What would you, and I know she's kind of drawing some anime characters right now as part of school projects. What advice would you give to my young friend Daylene in her quest to become a professional artist?
Okay, so I think she's already doing a great job if she's doing work for you, right? And for me, I think it's to find a friend or friends that you can, trade notes with and make them read your work. And you really need that to kind of keep you motivated and to like really helps your craft. And just to like continue to keep putting your work out there in small ways. I mean, usually like day job and things like that, or like school will get in the way. But, just keep coming back to your projects. Mm-hmm. And the other thing too is like, I like the idea of doing, like small projects that can eventually lead to a full graphic novel. So, I read this interesting quote the other day, and I'm gonna misquote it, but basically it's by Tezuka, and he's saying that like the 4-panel mini comic or the comic strip that we know, like in the Sunday funnies, mm-hmm. Is actually it's the same format as what can be expanded into a graphic novel. So there's like a surprise, and then there's a twist, and then there's the conclusion. Because they do the 4-panel over there. Here we do the 3-panel. Okay. But it's kind of the same. It's kind of the same thinking. So if you kind of can do a 4-panel or a 3-panel every day, I think it could eventually lead to a graphic novel. It will definitely improve your storytelling.
Yeah, well, we've talked here on the podcast about how difficult it is to tell a story in only 600 words when we're talking to picture book authors. And we've also talked about just how difficult it is to tell a story in a comic in 3 panels and maybe 20 words. But there's definitely stories in those comics.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's sometimes easier to focus on a specific moment in time, even for picture books, instead of telling an epic story, mm-hmm. or it's to take a small moment of the day, and then what if you can make that into a story, some sort of story, then the character development that you use in that makes that story work, you'll have figured out the character of that character, and you can expand that. that whatever makes that work into a graphic novel.
Wow.
Do you know what I'm saying?
I think so. Yeah. Yeah, I think so. And I think people listening get that too.
It's like, do I know what I'm saying? I don't know, but that's what I'm kind of like bubbling around in my head.
Well, I think it's really fascinating. And one of the things I love about this podcast is I get to talk to creative people like yourself and take a look into their process, because everybody's process is different. And what works for you, what works for me might be different things, but there might be something that you use in your process that I could borrow occasionally when I'm on stage and trying to create something.
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely learn a lot from watching a magician and working with kids in schools.
Well, it's a lot of fun. Hopefully one day we'll be able to do a double bill, do some magic and some illustration.
That would be really fun.
Yeah. Well, in the meantime, I know people are going to want to know where they can go to find out more about Pizza My Heart, Donut Feed the Squirrels, and Apple of My Pie.
Well, you can go to my website. It's mikasongdraws.com. I have all my books there, and I have some comics on sundayhaha.com, which is a weekly kids comics website. So every week there's fresh new comics by Kidlit authors. And you can also follow me on Instagram at Mika Song Draws. And that's if you want to see like what's basically what I'm drawing, what my desk looks like today.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's cool. That is so much fun. We've had a great time speaking to the author of the brand new graphic novel, Pizza My Heart. Our guest has been Mika Song. Hey, Mika, thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you for having me, Jed.
Please be sure to join us for the next episode of the Reading with Your Kids podcast. We'll be resharing our interview with Scarlett Lewis, the mother of one of the kids murdered in the Sandy Hook massacre. Scarlett's name has been in the news lately. She just recently won a defamation case against Alex Jones, who for years was claiming that Sandy Hook didn't happen. Scarlett is going to tell us how her son inspired her to start the Choose Love movement, making sure that something positive came from this tragedy. It's a really moving story, and I definitely think that you're going to want to listen to it. That's the next episode of the Reading with Your Kids podcast. I want to thank the folks who made today's show so wonderful. Of course, I want to start by thanking our guest, Mika Song. Please be sure to check out Pizza My Heart. It is an adorable book. You and your kids are going to love it. I also want to thank our sponsors, Margaret Pollock. Please be sure to check out her middle grade novel, Polar Peril. And, of course, we want to thank our friend Jacob Monroe. Please be sure to check out his beautiful picture book, Fly, 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 Little Birdie. I want to thank my team, Fatima Khan, Rory Grady, Nicole Bel Castro, Mirabella Q, Rain Pan. I want to thank my beautiful wife for all the support she gives me. Most of all, we all want to thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. And as always, thank you so very much for taking the time to make the world a better place by reading with your kids. I'll be looking for you in the next edition of the Reading with Your Kids podcast.